For 2.5 years, I was the ABC's South Asia correspondent. One of the first things that hit me when I arrived in India was the passion for this man, Narendra Modi.
I mean, look at this popularity that Narendra Modi has. The crowd is going absolutely crazy. And it feels like the biggest rock star in the world has just arrived.
As Prime Minister of an emerging superpower, Modi's courted like a god, including in Australia.
Prime Minister Modi is the boss.
But Modi does not tolerate accountability.
He's gone square, looked at us in the face and said, "You are the most hostile foreign organisation in India right now."
They're not going to extend my visa. And his government's accused of assassinating dissidents overseas.
I heard a panicked kind of voice on the other side saying they've shot Hardeep.
Now we've uncovered the long arm of the Indian state here in Australia.
We're from the ABC's Four Corners.
It's not the conduct you'd expect from a friendly nation.
Waging a secret war and threatening Australia's national security.
Inside.
Australia is nothing. Do you know the size of India? So next time, shut up and show respect.
Over 600 million people in India are about to vote for their Prime Minister. It's a story I've always wanted to cover. But my partner and I are leaving.
Well, we are packing up our house in Delhi. It's gotten to this point where we're running out of time now. It's just 2 days before my visa expires, and it's a real struggle to get any answers about what's actually going on. And we just have no choice now but to actually pack up our lives and leave the country.
Last month, I got a call from a government official saying my reporting had crossed a line. He said a story I'd done was beyond extreme. It was a shock. But when I really interrogate what's happened to India in the past decade under Narendra Modi, I'm not surprised. During Modi's 10-year reign, India's middle class has grown. He says he's lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty.
जिन आदिवासी बाहुल्य जिलों को पहले पिछड़ा मानकर छोड़ दिया गया था, 10 वर्षों में वहां विकास की नई आशा जगी।
Wherever you go, you find spick and span boards, good infrastructure.
और हम चाहते हैं कि मोदी जी ऐसे ही काम करते रहें, और हम मोदी जी के सिवा हम प्रधानमंत्री के रूप में हम किसी को भी देखना नहीं चाहते।
At age 8, Modi joined the far-right Hindu nationalist organisation, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, or the RSS.
The RSS is commonly described as a far-right paramilitary organisation. It was formed in the 1920s and it was inspired by German Nazism and Italian fascism.
The RSS rejects secular India and wants it to be a Hindu state. It's the largest far-right organisation in the world, with millions of members. Modi's ruling party, the BJP, grew out of the RSS.
Modi was a long-time RSS member. Most of the BJP's top leadership have a history in the RSS, so he went through the paramilitary training, the indoctrination.
Supporters say these organisations are reclaiming a lost Hindu identity. Others criticise them for politicising the religion.
The BJP seeks to conflate a very pluralistic religion into a very narrow form. India's a very diverse country. Modi's ideology wants to diminish all of that.
Modi's pushed Hindu supremacy and ultra-nationalism, but claims democracy is still strong in India.
Democracy is the spirit that supports equality and dignity. India is blessed to have such values from times immemorial. In the evolution of the democratic spirit, India is the mother of democracy. Thank you.
But he's hardened his stance against minorities, dissidents, and freedom of speech.
ये देखिए ये जख्म है तो इधर पूरा लाठीचार्ज हुआ है.
Mandeep Punia is part of India's enormous media landscape.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Mandeep.
Yeah.
Avani, nice to meet you.
In 2021, he was jailed after reporting a story claiming a BJP worker and affiliate attacked protesters with a petrol bomb. Police accused Mandeep of obstructing an officer at the protest.
मेरे को तिहाड़ जेल में भेज दिया गया और कस्टडी में मारपीट भी हुई और दे ब्रोक माय कैमरा तो उन्होंने मेरा कैमरा मेरा फ़ोन सब तोड़ दिया एंड मेरे को 3 बार उन्होंने पीटा. समझ में आ रहा था कि ये जो अटैक है ये मतलब मेरे ऊपर नहीं है, पत्रकारिता के ऊपर, ये जर्नलिज्म के ऊपर है.
Minorities like Sikhs and Muslims also say they're being targeted. Modi's party's been accused of supporting demolitions of Muslim homes and mosques, like Shabana's place in North Delhi.
मोदी जी का एक बात बताइए, ये जितने भी डेमोनेशन हो रहे हैं, उन डेमोनेशन में किसका हाथ है? क्योंकि मोदी जी ऑलरेडी मुझे बर्बाद कर चुके हैं. मेरे पास खोने के लिए कुछ नहीं है.
I quickly learned holding Modi to account can land you in hot water. When I started reporting on the death of a Sikh separatist, things started getting difficult.
Why have to inform you that your permission was cancelled? And
You need to give us a reason for why you've suddenly decided not to allow us.
the reason I can't explain you that.
The Indian government blocked my story on YouTube and Facebook, and it was quick to act against me.
They're not going to extend my visa. Honestly, pretty crazy. It feels weird and it's disappointing. I actually can't quite believe that they're doing this, and it sets a really bad precedent for India.
The Australian government started lobbying on my behalf.
हेलो हाँ जी सर हम पास पिक कर सकते हैं आज
At the same time, my colleague Meghna and I were trying to organise our access passes for the election.
Sir, elections start on Friday. We need the passes.
So what did they initially say to you about the passes?
What they've said is that the ministry has given them a directive not to release the ABC's passes. He said Australian broadcasting is not to receive passes.
So he directly said that to you?
So he directly said that to me this morning.
Because obviously you'll be travelling with Meghna later this week. We've got our shoots this week. Yeah.
Meghna spoke to the BJP about our coverage.
We finally end up in a room with someone who's a BJP spokesman. We said we're from the ABC. And he sort of just looked at us and he's gone square, looked at us in the face and said, "You are the most hostile foreign organisation in India right now. You are after us and you have the most biased reporting."
How do you feel about covering it after that conversation?
Getting that confirmation straight from the horse's mouth. I'm not going to lie, I was like, for a second, we were sort of like, how are we going to get through the next 6 weeks in a balanced, factual way if one half of the team isn't talking to us and that's the team that's in power?
Eventually, Meghna got her pass, but mine didn't come through. The night before our flight home to Australia, I got a short visa extension, but it was clear I wasn't getting access to cover the election properly, so I decided to leave.
Well, I'm in the terminal in Delhi, made it through security and immigration. I don't like that this intimidation is getting to me, but the last few weeks have been so stressful. It's been so unsettling, and I'm ready to go home.
I arrived home to a media storm. Outlets sympathetic to the Modi government started discrediting me.
उधर सरकारी सूत्रां दा कहना है कि ऑस्ट्रेलियाई पत्रकार वालों लगाए गए ये सारे दोष बेबुनियाद ते गुमराहकुन ने.
This ABC journalist also has a track record of peddling anti-Hindu propaganda, which could be confirmed.
Australia is nothing. Nothing. Do you know the size of India? So next time, shut up and show respect. You're talking about the Prime Minister of India. Yeah, you can go and abuse the Prime Minister of Australia for all you like. I don't care. When you talk about the Prime Minister of India, you do so with respect. And don't give me this nonsense about media freedom. What you're writing is lies.
The Australian government response was muted. It said it appreciated India's assistance in eventually granting me a visa. As I settled in back home, I discovered the Modi government's tentacles stretch into Australia. To understand it, you need to know two of the main organisations that hold up the Hindu nationalist movement. The RSS, described as a far-right paramilitary group, and Modi's more mainstream political party, the BJP. I found out these groups have sister Hindu nationalist organisations operating in Australia. I've come to a part of Western Sydney where many Hindus practice their faith.
So what would you usually do at the river here?
Well, we'd have the conclusion of the Ganesha festival and they bring the idol.
Arjun Nidagalu was an HSS camp leader. His parents signed him up when he was a kid.
My parents, like most migrants, were concerned that I wasn't getting like a cultural upbringing, and so they'd send me to these camps.
The HSS has at least 30 branches across Australia. Arjun says for years it felt harmless.
There are people you meet who go through similar issues around racism and bullying, and you come back feeling like you're not alone, and that was a big thing.
Eventually, he helped run the camps.
What was the final straw for you that made you want to leave all of these organisations?
It was a festival event. A lot of young children and children as young as 7 were playing tug of war as part of the games they were playing for the festival. And they were instructed to shout a slogan repetitively as they played tug of war. And in Hindi, it goes like this. It goes, Hindustan Hinduon ka hai, which means Hindustan or India belongs to the Hindus. And you've got young kids who, and I knew these kids, they didn't speak anything but English, and that image just didn't sit well with me. And no matter how hard you try, the toxicity eventually trickles down to the children. And that was my last event, and I had to walk away from that after that.
So this is your studio?
Welcome to the studio.
Nice.
It's been almost 10 years since Arjun left the Hindu nationalist movement in Australia.
These organisations have more or less taken a monopoly on what it is to be Hindu. You don't hear the voices of those who are secular Hindus.
So we found a few videos on social media of the HSS sharkers and the camps, and I just wanted to kind of understand them a bit more. So there's this one, there's all these kids. Do you want to play this one?
Yeah, sure.
We've analysed dozens of videos and photos of Australian Indian kids and adults at HSS camps. It looks normal, but there's another side.
These 2 frame photos, they're the founders.
At the camps, there's a tribute to 2 influential historical figures in the Hindu nationalist movement. One of them, MS Golwalkar, said minorities like Muslims were a threat to India, and the country could learn from the Nazis' killing of Jews.
I think the way the history is told to the children and the way the narrative is structured is that these are our heroes. It's clear that the Hindu race is seen as the dominant race, one that matters, and more importantly, one that actually has ownership of the Indian land.
In parks and halls across Australia, the participants are also being taught an Indian martial art called Danda.
The large and heavy bamboo sticks, and this is to inculcate a sense of self-discipline, self-defence, and the way they frame it is to be prepared for any invaders and any attacks.
Arjun, this does look a bit like a normal martial arts class. What makes it dangerous?
The way it plays itself out in the real world in India when it comes to minority treatment, when it comes to tearing down the places of worship of minorities. This does play itself in a violent way.
As you can see in this footage, Danda is used by Hindu nationalist devotees in deadly riots against Indian Muslims. We've also found Australian HSS volunteers have attended RSS training camps in India and held talks for RSS leaders in Australia. A spokesperson from HSS Australia told us Danda is like other self-defence training. They said the organisation does charity work and that it takes inspiration from the RSS. As one of the largest diasporas in the country, Indian Australians now hold huge political power. It's something Australian politicians are keenly aware of.
Together, we are building a better world.
For several years, our politicians have been cozying up to the Indian government. keen to position us to benefit from this emerging superpower's growth.
Prime Minister Modi and I discussed the increasingly uncertain global security environment.
India's also an important bulwark against China's increasing power in the region. Some watching the Australia-India relationship are asking, at what cost?
The Australian government has been very quiet in terms of commenting on or criticising India's turn toward authoritarianism. It's embraced Narendra Modi. So a lot of the authoritarian features of the Narendra Modi government simply have been swept under the carpet by the Australian government, unfortunately.
The last time I saw someone on the stage here was Bruce Springsteen, and he didn't get the welcome that Prime Minister Modi has got. Prime Minister Modi is the boss. I want you to give a big Australian welcome to my dear friend, Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Hindu nationalist groups in Australia helped organise this stadium event during Modi's Sydney visit last year. One of the groups is called the Overseas Friends of the BJP. Would you classify the Overseas Friends of BJP as a political party?
They are actually a type of equation with the Bharatiya Janata Party or BJP from India. Their job is to promote the policies and views of BJP here. There's no other purpose. And in fact, their global head is in New Delhi, and it's called Global Overseas Friends of BJP. So they are linked with BJP. A lot of promises made. They will fix the
Yadu Singh was a BJP supporter.
They presented themselves as the savior, as people who would do good thing for India.
He's a cardiologist and community leader in Sydney.
I'm a Hindu. I'm a practicing Hindu, but a Hindu who does not discriminate or hate anybody else.
Why did you feel the need to say that?
I think it's important. I believe in Hinduism or Hindu Dharma.
Are you worried that Mr. Modi and the BJP are promoting a narrow version of what Hinduism is?
Well, there have been some commentaries in rallies which were not very good.
Sources have told us the Overseas Friends of the BJP's strategy is to infiltrate politics. So it wants to get elected to local councils first, then state government, and ultimately federal parliament. So we started looking for patterns of the organisation's influence in Australia, and it led us here to the northwest of Sydney, the Hills Shire, which is also the federal electorate of Mitchell, held by Alex Hawke.
It's great to be here with the Hindu Council of Australia.
We've discovered one of Alex Hawke's closest deputies, Rahul Jethi, is a founding member of the Overseas Friends of the BJP in Australia. He's seen here chanting a slogan co-opted by Hindu nationalists and was seen at organisation events with senior Indian ministers this year. He also holds a powerful position in Alex Hawke's seat, supervising his branches. Sources say Alex Hawke and his allies lobbied councillors in the Hills Shire to get Rahul Jethi's wife Reena the position of Deputy Mayor in 2019. Hawke has told us he wasn't involved. We've linked Rahul Jethi to a fundraising war chest for Alex Hawke called the Mitchell Club. Four Corners has found this flyer with an email address accessed by Jethi. He and Mr. Hawke deny Jethi's connected. It seems this political alliance continues to deliver. We've been leaked data from Alex Hawke's seat. We've analysed the last 5 years, and in more than half the branches, Indian Australians make up a substantial proportion of the new members. It's almost impossible to get Liberal members to speak about this. Hello.
Hi,
I'm Avani. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Please.
Thanks for having me.
When I was on executive and
Longtime Alex Hawke rival Matthew Kamanzuli was a senior member of the party until he was expelled a couple of years ago.
All right, so I just want to show you some of these numbers that we've been given. What goes through your mind when you see this?
insane. Insane.
Why so insane?
I mean, that's nuts. And the further up and down the list you go, the more you're seeing it. It's out of control.
We've been told by several recruits that Rahul Jethi signed them up. Jethi denies it all. He says he's just like any other Liberal Party office bearer.
It's entirely possible that he could tell Alex Hawke that he can roll him in his next pre-selection, which means he won't be the MP anymore. I think the Liberal Party should be doing a significant investigation. The member for Mitchell has to answer to this. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good.
Be able to stop violence.
In a statement, Alex Hawke said he complies with all Liberal Party and electoral rules and said he's modernised his electorate. A Liberal Party spokesman said the Overseas Friends of the BJP Australia isn't registered as a foreign agent. That's true, the organisation is operating here without scrutiny. In this video, they're drumming up votes for a candidate in southern India. In the US, it's been declared a foreign agent and has to disclose all political activities.
I've heard that the Overseas Friends of the BJP is having an event here in Parramatta. I really want to know what they think about these accusations that they're trying to infiltrate Australia. So let's go and ask them. Hello.
We're greeted by one of the group's office bearers, Anka. At first, we're not allowed inside.
Yeah, you gotta turn off. You gotta turn off.
We're just, yeah, so what's...
Look, then I wouldn't let you come in.
Okay, sure. So are we able to go inside?
No, you're not.
After some convincing, we're invited in.
What's your aims of your group here?
Nothing. Just we are a fan group. It's just like, you know, Manchester United. There is a lot of Aussies. They might be supporting those particular teams, right? It's the same thing.
I ask him if the organisation is trying to infiltrate Australian politics.
Here?
No, not at all. No. We are Indian diaspora, you know. We are Indian diaspora. Obviously, being a citizen, obviously we exercise our rights here. But other than that, there is nothing. There is nothing there.
And what's the aims of
The BJP has a head of foreign affairs who says his role is to coordinate with the party's global outreach platform, the Overseas Friends of the BJP.
Obviously, you work with the BJP in India to kind of organise your events and how you sort of function here?
No, not really.
No connection at all?
No, look, sometime obviously if major event like Narendra Modi's, you know, reception and all right, as a community, we join hands together with the community and we just help them, nothing else. Other than that, it helps the it's just, look, our organization is a non-profit organization, so please, all right, respect our some
Then
privacy.
we're told we've overstayed our welcome. India's not just accused of covert forms of foreign interference. The most shocking allegations against the Indian government involve assassinating dissidents on foreign soil. Maninder Singh's just stepped off a flight from Vancouver. What other passengers don't know is he's in grave danger.
Hey,
How are you?
Good, how you been?
Nice to meet you. How's the flight?
Long. About a few hours into the flight, I started getting notifications that there's been a duty to warn that's been provided to another member of the community to have these duty to warns of which are imminent threat to assassination.
Maninder's in Australia to sound an alarm. He says Canadian authorities have told him and 8 others they could be killed at any moment, including a Canadian Sikh federal MP.
So we know the risks that we're kind of like taking at the moment, the time when you leave your house to the moment you get back. And even when you're in your house, everything from the doorbell ringing to everything is coordinated.
Meninda is part of a global movement calling for the state of Punjab to break away from India and become a separate Sikh nation called Khalistan.
It's like basically what we think is that like either we'll see Khalistan or we'll die trying.
Last year, Meninda's close friend Hardeep Singh Nijjar was shot dead outside their local temple in Vancouver. Canada has accused the Indian government of orchestrating the assassination. The Modi administration denies it and has accused Nijjar of being a terrorist. Can you tell me about that day that Hardeep Singh Nijjar was killed?
It was actually Father's Day, 2023. We had dinner, and then just like any other family, my kids were playing in the next room, and I got like multiple calls on my phone over and over again. And I picked up, and I heard a panicked kind of voice on the other side saying, Baji, which means brother, come right away, they've shot Hardeep.
Meninda rushed to the Sikh temple or Gurdwara where Hardeep was killed.
I would oddly say to you, I've shed 2 tears since he's died, and both of them were when I leaned in to kiss his forehead in his casket. But it's one of those things that if it starts, it's probably not gonna finish. So you just don't allow yourself that type of emotion. You focus on the bigger fight. You focus on what the community needs.
2 months before Hardeep Singh Nijjar's assassination, the Indian Foreign Secretary sent a secret cable to Indian consulates across North America.
We got a copy of the memo, and it orders a sophisticated crackdown on pro-Khalistan groups that have been designated as terrorists by the Indian government. It also calls Nijjar an extremist against whom concrete measures need to be taken, and it instructs Indian consulates to work with India's foreign spy service, RAW. The Indian government has called this document a fake.
After the execution in Canada, the Indian government allegedly didn't stop there. It's accused of going for a much more ambitious target in New York City. This man, Gopatwan Pannu, the leader of pro-Khalistan group Sikhs for Justice.
This did not come as a surprise to me, or even if something is going to happen to me tomorrow, or if I get killed in future, that would not be a surprise to anybody. The only thing we all must know that this is the Indian system that is trying to suppress the freedom of speech and expression of pro-Khalistan Sikhs.
As President Joe Biden welcomed Narendra Modi to Washington, D.C., the murder plot against Pannu was ramping up.
Several hundred miles to the north in New York City, you had an assassination plot unfolding. You had an Indian intelligence officer in India urging what he thought was a hit team to rush ahead and take care of this targeted killing.
It failed dramatically.
It was penetrated from the start. The Indian government tried to hire a hitman in New York, ultimately turned to somebody who was working as an informant for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency.
So from the very outset, the United States was able to see right into this operation as it unfolded. Indian authorities told media the assassination could have been orchestrated by a rogue operative. Washington Post reporter Greg Miller revealed India's top spy chiefs were implicated in the plot against Pannu.
The way the Indian security system works, it just seems very unlikely that you would have an intelligence chief and a national security advisor who would set plots like this in motion without a pretty clear understanding that ultimately the Prime Minister would be okay with it.
The Indian government has justified cracking down on the Khalistan movement because it sees it as a terror threat. It points to the 80s and 90s when the movement turned into an armed militancy, and an Air India flight was bombed, killing more than 300 people. The Sikh bodyguards who assassinated the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in 1984 were incensed by her decision to order Indian military to storm Sikhism's holiest site.
Smoke billowing over New Delhi, reflecting...
Thousands of Sikhs were then killed in reprisals. Today, authorities say Gopatwan Pannu's social media posts are threatening India's safety, especially when he draws on the past.
सिख पंथ वालिओ 19 नवंबर तो बाद एयर इंडिया च सफर नहीं करना जान नू खतरा हो सकदा है.
He denies he's a threat.
What did you mean when you said that it could be life-threatening?
I'm stating over and over again, if anybody flies Air India, you will be funding a Sikh genocide, which will be life-threatening for your future generations. So whether they wanted to assassinate me or whether they want to kill me, I will not stop. I will continue to campaign for Sikhs' right to self-determination. I will continue to organize Khalistan referendums. And even if the destiny is a death, our destiny is a bullet, I'm ready to take it.
Sikhs who've migrated to Australia continue to worship in temples like this. The fraught history in India led many to migrate here, including separatists. Maninder fears even Australia isn't far enough removed from the Indian state.
I think in Australia, it's brewing. They're already here, they're already interfering, and it's very dangerous for the Sikh community here. If something isn't checked soon, that, a country like Australia could be in the same position as Canada in a few years.
So I've heard that Sikh separatists are feeling the pressure of the Indian government all the way here in Australia. It's a really sensitive issue for these guys, but one of them has agreed to speak to me on camera, so I'm heading to meet him now. Harjinder Singh lives in suburban Melbourne with his family. So what's out here?
I'll show you the car.
By day, he's a taxi driver. His real passion is his activism in the Australian chapter of Sikhs for Justice, the same group as executed leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
I love Khalistan. It makes me feel happy, makes me proud to be a Khalistani, to put a Khalistan decor on my car. So that's why I put over there so big, so boldly over there.
Harjinder's an Australian citizen. He says he's been the victim of an intimidation campaign. At a key moment in the Khalistan movement, Harjinder got a threatening call from a private number. A couple of months later, his phone rang again.
I got a call at midnight and I was scared. Well, why? Who calling me this time with no caller ID? And I got a call on that time. You are not listening us in Punjabi. You are not listening us now. So be careful.
Harjinder wasn't deterred. He kept speaking out about Khalistan. Then he says Indian authorities sent people to his parents' home in Punjab.
Some people visited my place. We told you to stop him. And we got orders from the Indian authorities. If anyone's doing opposite, like against the country, we got orders to kill them. And he don't know, he's not sure, is it from the police, is it from intelligence?
How did your parents react when these Indian authorities said that your life was in danger?
They got scared.
How did you feel hearing that authorities are going to Harjinder's parents' house and saying all these things?
If they're targeting him, obviously they're targeting me as well. I don't know. If something happened, I don't know. It's scary. I feel so scared sometimes, even say, oh, Harry, he said, don't worry, like, you know, we're not doing wrong things.
We've found more than 6 other Australians in the movement who say they're also being threatened by Indian authorities. The next part of my investigation brings me to the Australian capital and the nerve centre of the country's intelligence services. It's here in 2021 that the head of ASIO, Mike Burgess, announced a serious incursion on our sovereignty.
One of our investigations focused on a nest of spies from a particular foreign intelligence service that was operating in our country. These spies developed targeted relationships with current and former politicians, a foreign embassy, and a state police service. They monitored their country's diaspora community. We confronted the foreign spies and quietly and professionally removed them from our country. It's fertile ground for sharing.
Burgess didn't name the country, but the Washington Post did.
That was, I think, also quite troubling that India, a presumed ally, another democracy, would be trying to get at information that would apparently identify vulnerabilities in Australia.
Greens Senator David Shoebridge has been following this case closely.
I was shocked. It's not the conduct you'd expect from a friendly nation. But remember, this is an administration, the BJP administration, that has been involved in the assassination of a Sikh leader in Canada. When you reflect upon that very recent history, it doesn't seem at all out of character. It's part of what I think is a very disturbing trend we've seen.
This is the Indian High Commission in Canberra, and it's where the Modi government's representatives work here in the country. It's also where the Indian spies were pretending to be unsuspecting diplomats. And through the course of my investigation, I found out something that's pretty surprising. It was previously reported that just 2 Indian intelligence operatives were asked to leave the country. We've now confirmed that at least 4 were kicked out of Australia. The expulsions were done secretly, and the intelligence operatives were asked to leave one by one. The Modi government thought it got away without any public embarrassment.
Australia should have condemned it publicly at the time. That not only would have been good to have an honest baseline for our relationship with India, but it would have also sent a message to the diaspora communities here that we've got your back.
The Indian government didn't get back to our requests for a response. Australian ministers declined an interview. In a statement, a spokesperson said the government is deeply concerned by these allegations. They said the government doesn't tolerate threats of violence.
I think the Indian diaspora has a range of views, and we have made clear in relation to democratic debate in Australia that the peaceful expression of different views is a key part of Australia's democracy.
Unlike Canada, Australia hasn't put substantial brakes on the relationship with India. Isn't it fair that the Australian government is pursuing this strong relationship with India, considering it's become such an economic and technological powerhouse?
Well, I think it's absolutely a good strategy to forge close ties with India, to reach out as a friend to India. But it's bloody foolhardy to do it and not protect yourself when you know there's an active threat in play. We have a very recent case study in Australian history about what happens when all you see is money and trade and a growth economy, and you don't see any of the kind of concerns. And it's what we did with China. It turns out we're repeating many of the same mistakes with India, and that's just setting us up for trouble.
It's Judgment Day for Narendra Modi. And across Australia and the world, people are glued to screens, watching election results roll in.
It is. Yeah.
Modi said he'd win this election in a landslide, but he could barely make a majority. It's a defeat for this leader who once seemed invincible. Maybe the result will take Modi down a notch and force him to respect India's strong democratic foundations. Or he could crack down even more, changing India forever and testing Australia's desire to stay close, even at the expense of its own citizens.